4 weeks ago, I decided to make a change when it came to Call of Duty, and for the first time since Black Ops 2, I picked up a controller. That's when I started a 30-day, 500 bots a day challenge. And this is my process and what helped me. And here's a few tips that might help you along the way if you decide to do this so you don't have to do too much research either. Now, everyone has seen tips and tricks videos from people with perfect aim and perfect movement, giving them tips on how to get better. So, of course, I did just that. I went to YouTube, tried to consume as much content as possible just to figure out how I can dive into this controller situation. And honestly, I was way more confused than when I started. But with that said, here's how I got my gameplay to go from this to this. First off, I'd like to thank everyone who took 2 seconds to just hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. I mean, some of you guys gave me a lot of good advice that I really took into consideration over these last 4 weeks. And honestly, it's made me a lot better. If you find any content in this video helpful, please drop a like on the video. I'm trying to hit over 10 on this one so that way I could be my most liked one. All right, well, let's get into it. Tip number 1, finding the settings that work for you. Coming from keyboard and mouse, I had way too many key bindings, especially when it came to anything I could touch with my left hand. It was bound to something. But on a controller, you're pretty limited. So basically, if you're not using claw like this and pushing these buttons, you're gonna have to move your thumb off the stick, which you want to keep it on there as much as possible. So I remapped a bunch of the buttons on the controller in my Call of Duty settings. They're not the best keybinds. I wouldn't recommend copying them by any means because I'm gonna change them once I get paddles on the back, which should make everything a little bit easier. So for sensitivity, started off at 5.5, went to 6.6, tried to get up to 7.7, ended up going back down to 5.5, started playing multiplayer, and I realized I got smashed. I couldn't turn fast enough to even get somebody that was like jumping off to the side. They were breaking my camera constantly. So with that being said, I went back to the drawing board and found a video from Coach Crowder. Coach Crowder? He coaches the Atlanta Fate. Anyways, so there's tons of players in the CDL that run a 5.5, a 7.7, 6.6. They have all kinds, but I think it was Celium that runs like an off number. They're like 7.6 or 7.4. It's super weird. So I was like, well, the problem I have is vertical. So I dropped my vertical sensitivity down to 5 and my horizontal was 7. And that changed everything. I found myself pulling down on the right stick way too hard, so dropping the sensitivity to 5 made it more manageable for me. But there are still downfalls, like in this clip. 1v1 for the win. My sensitivity is too slow to aim down fast enough, and he slides and breaks my camera and we lose. Second tip I got is centering. Centering is probably everything. More important than aiming, shooting, all that stuff. You pretty much just want to make sure that your crosshairs are up at a level position, not aiming at the floor. So that way you don't have to look up before you start to shoot somebody. Make sure that when you're running around the map, you're looking at places where people will show up. Don't be staring at the sky or like off to the left. Look at a doorway. Once you're getting into the doorway, start looking towards the stairs or the window, whatever like position that would be. You're gonna want to keep your crosshairs up and at those, because it's gonna minimize the response time that you have to then aim at them and shoot them rather than look up and then aim and shoot. Tip number 3 is understanding aim assist and recoil. Now, rotational aim assist is godlike. Honestly, it's surprising to me. I didn't realize it until I picked up the controller and started messing around with it. So if a player is running through your FOB and you're just aimed down sight and they cross your red dot, your aim assist will not work at all. Like, it doesn't do anything. But if you're gently moving side to side while that person runs by, you'll feel that little red dot start pulling towards them. It's a little weird. If they run directly through it, it's a little bit weaker. If they kind of run at an angle this way or angle that way, it's a lot stronger and it'll like really pull. It's kind of almost like cheating. So be using it. Recoil was probably one of the hardest things for me to get. What I would recommend is when you build out your loadout guns for your private match, make sure you put a lot of recoil control attachments on there. That way when you're going through the motions and shooting, you're not having to control as much recoil. Be gentle on that right stick. because if you pull too much, you're gonna just shoot their legs essentially, or you might break your own aim assist. Tip number 4, we're gonna go with practice, but make sure it's good practice. When you go into these private matches, make sure that you're working on your centering. It's not really about, oh, if you get killed by a bot, it doesn't matter. Make sure you're working on the centering, you're working on your movement, like sliding, slide through doors, turn the corner. Make sure you're doing that in in a smooth motion. Start jumping, start trying to break the bot's cameras. Just make sure that you're, starting to get more comfortable moving around, shooting, jumping and shooting, drop shotting. Like, that's where you should be working on all these moves 100%. By the 3rd week, I was killing all the bots probably about 35 minutes, but then I realized I wasn't trying to be better. You know what I mean? I was just going for killing the bots as fast as possible. Another big tip too is bump the bots health up to 250. That's going to make you have to track them as they move, if they're moving, or if you're moving more, you're going to have to stay on the target and you'll have to control the recoil a little better. Tip number 5, get into some multiplayer and some Warzone. Honestly, work on the centering, work on just trying to control the recoil for a little bit. Sure, in multiplayer, you're going to have that 150 health, so people will die faster. But if you want to, bump that up, you can go to Warzone Bootcamp and then just kind of work through that. I mean, it's 25 bots and 25 players. It's kind of the perfect middle ground. You will get the occasional sweat that's just in there to just kill everybody and be super happy about it for some strange self-gratification reason, whatever. But regardless, it was still pretty fun. I probably played about 30 of those matches and started getting me a lot more comfortable on the controller. Don't give up. If you start this, just keep going at it, because honestly, the results are going to surprise you. Just even after a week, I started seeing a change in the way I was playing, a change in how I approached gunfights. And then by the 2nd, 3rd week, I was like, okay, now I need my movement to get better. And then now I'm getting way more comfortable. I'm almost up to like the same amount that I would be on a keyboard and mouse. My movement's still a little slow, but that's going to come with time and getting comfortable with the controller. And once again, thank everyone who's watched the video, subscribed, commented, gave me tips. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one.